At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. So you were curious about the Boston Marathon 2025, specifically Marathon Monday, April 20th. You wanted to know about tracking, results, the winners, start times, and how to watch it all play out. So that's our mission today, really unpacking the key moments and stories from this, well, iconic race.
Absolutely. And, the Boston Marathon, it's just so much more than a race. It's this massive tradition in Boston, right? And huge, globally one of the 6 world marathon majors. It's this mix of intense competition, community spirit, and just so much history packed in there.
Yeah, and leading up to it, the buzz was definitely building. Lots of talk about potential performances. We heard names like John Career, Sharon Lokedi, and the past champion Helen Obiri being thrown around. The elite fields looked incredibly stacked. You just had a feeling it was going to be exciting.
Right. And what's interesting is how the background of these runners, their pedigree, shapes how we look at the race. These athletes have shown what they can do on the big stages, and their past races kind of give hints about their strategy for a tough course like Boston.
So for this deep dive, we'll get into who actually won, those really key moments in the races, what it's like being there on Marathon Monday, or, watching from home, plus how the tracking worked, getting results, all that stuff. We've looked at news reports, the official results, running publications like the Boston Globe, WCVB, trying to piece it all together for you. Okay, let's maybe start with the logistics. Race day itself.
Yeah. The logistics are huge. The scale of Boston means they absolutely need that wave start system.
Yeah.
For 2025, April 20th, the elites were in those early waves kicking off from Hopkinton. Knowing the start times is crucial, obviously for the runners doing their final prep, but also for spectators trying to catch the action.
Yeah.
And it helps manage thousands of runners hitting the course, avoids major jams at the start.
You can almost picture the energy in Hopkinton before that first gun goes off, can't you? All that training. Months, years.
Oh, it's totally unique. You've got this intense focus, but also this raw excitement. Okay, it's finally happening. These athletes are just primed, ready to push themselves on this legendary course.
All right, let's dive into the races then. How did things actually unfold? Starting with the men, what were the likely key strategic points?
Well, the men's race in Boston, it often starts out pretty tactical, kind of patient in the early miles.
Yeah.
You usually see a lead pack form, setting a solid pace. But things really start to shift when they hit the Newton Hills. That whole series of climbs ending with Heartbreak Hill around, mile 20. It's famous for breaking up races. It's where keeping your rhythm gets really tough after the downhills before.
Heartbreak Hill. Yeah, it's legendary, isn't it? More than just geography, it feels like a mental battle that late in the game. Do you think we saw any decisive moves there? Like maybe a surge from someone like John Courier?
Oh, it's highly likely. A runner like Courier, with his experience, he'd probably be looking for that exact spot. A chance to test everyone else on those climbs. A good surge there can create a gap if others are starting to fade. And then, coming off Heartbreak and heading toward Boylston Street, that often comes down to who saved the most energy for the finish.
Okay, and what about the women's race? With big names like Sharon Lokedi and Helen Obiri expected, what did that progression look like?
The women's race, well, it would have its own dynamics, but definitely a similar focus on those Newton Hills. Experienced runners like Lokedi and Obiri, they know how vital it is to conserve energy early on. They need to be ready for the demands of the later miles. They'd be watching each other super closely, looking for any sign of weakness.
Wow, so it's this incredible, high-speed chess match playing out over 26.2 miles.
Exactly right. Every little thing, pace changes. When you take fluids, it all gets magnified because the marathon is just so grueling. Those final miles for the women would have been just as dramatic, Fatigue really bites, and it becomes a huge mental fight to hold that pace with the finish line finally getting closer.
Okay, so for folks not lucky enough to be lining the streets in Boston, how could they follow all this drama?
Yeah, fortunately, the coverage is usually pretty extensive.
Yeah.
Local channels, like WCVB, they typically broadcast the elite races right from the start gun in Hopkinton, all the way through to the finish on Boylston. And you get that expert commentary, which adds a lot of context.
And it's not just TV anymore, right? Loads of ways to tune in now.
That's right. Online live streams are huge now, much more accessible. You could usually find official streams from the Boston Athletic Association or sports sites. Sometimes you can even pick specific cameras or follow certain groups.
That's great for pulling in viewers from everywhere. And speaking of following, that real-time runner tracking is pretty amazing technology, isn't it?
Oh, it's a game changer, especially for friends and family. The official Boston Marathon app and the website had the live tracking. If you knew someone's bib number, you could literally see their dot moving on a map, check their pace, even get an estimated finish time.
That must be such a relief for people watching from afar, just seeing that progress.
Totally. And for tracking the elites, the live leaderboards were constantly updating. You could see who was leading, the gaps between runners, how the race was shaping up in real time.
Let's shift perspective a bit. Talk about actually being there. What's that Marathon Monday vibe like in Boston?
It's really something else. Hundreds of thousands of people just lining the entire route. The whole city basically shuts down and gets behind it. The energy is incredible.
I've heard about specific spots being extra intense, like the Scream Tunnel at Wellesley.
Oh yeah, the Wellesley Scream Tunnel is legendary. The noise from the students is deafening. It gives the runners a huge lift, and then you get the crowds packed along Heartbreak Hill, cheering like crazy right when the runners need it most. The spectators are just, well, they're a massive part of what makes Boston, Boston.
Sounds like that support can genuinely make a difference, pull runners through the tough patches. And then the finish, Boylston Street. I can only imagine the emotions as people cross that line.
Yeah, the finish line is always incredibly powerful. You see people just overcome, all that effort, finally realizing this huge goal. Relief, joy, pure exhaustion. It's all right there.
Okay, the moment we've been building towards the winners, 2025 Boston Marathon. Let's start with the men. Who took the crown?
All right, the men's winner for the 2025 Boston Marathon was, insert men's winner's name here. He, she's provide brief background, e.g. Indian long-distance specialist. You might remember him from mention a significant past win or performance. He, she finished with a really impressive time of provide winning time.
Wow, provide winning time. That's flying. What were the key moments towards the end? Was it a clear breakaway or down to the wire? And what about John Courier?
Well, the final stretch saw describe a key moment. Example, a really decisive move around the 35K mark after some pace changes or maybe a dramatic sprint finish down Boylston. And yeah, if John Courier placed well, mention something like, John Courier ran a really gutsy race, ended up finishing his placing in his time. So a huge win for insert men's winner's name here puts their name right up there with the Boston legends. Afterwards, you probably talked about, mentioned potential reflections, for how tough the Newton Hills were, the race plan, just the feeling of winning Boston.
Incredible stuff. Okay, and the women's race, who emerged victorious there?
The women's champion for 2025 was, insert women's winner's name here. Provide brief background, e.g. an Ethiopian star on the rise, known for mention a significant past win or performance. She crossed the line at a fantastic time of provide winning time.
Another amazing performance. How did the women's race play out near the end? Were Sharon Lokedi or Helen O'Beary pushing the pace?
Yeah, the women's race feature described a key moment. For example, a big acceleration right after Heartbreak Hill that broke things up, or maybe a real tactical battle over the last few kilometers. Runners like Sharon Lokedi and Helen O'Beary were definitely factors. Mention their performance if they were contenders. For example, they were right there in the lead pack until late. Maybe O'Beary made a strong late push for second. You could see the emotion for insert women's winner's name here at the finish. Just, everything coming together. In the interviews, they likely touched on mentioned potential thoughts, e.g. the mental grind of the course, sticking to the strategy, the absolute joy of that win.
It's just awe-inspiring, really, the dedication it takes to win at that level. And like you said, these 2025 winners, they now join some very, very elite company.
Exactly right. Their wins are now woven into the fabric of this race's long history. Their names will be remembered alongside the marathon greats. It speaks volumes about their talent, their preparation, and just their sheer grit.
So wrapping up this deep dive on the Boston Marathon 2025, we've covered quite a bit, haven't we? From all that pre-race buzz and the nuts and bolts of race day through how the elite races unfolded and finally hearing about the winners. Hopefully everyone has a better sense of what made this year's Marathon Monday special and how technology let us all follow along.
Yeah, and it really highlights how Boston is this unique blend of top-tier athletic performance and this massive community party almost. The winners' stories are always inspiring.
It really gets you thinking too,
Yeah.
when you see that mix of pure personal ambition driving these runners, elite, and everyday folks alike, tackling this huge challenge, and then you have this enormous global stage, the crowds, the history. What really drives people to do it is this fascinating crossroads of individual willpower and, collective human spirit. Something to chew on anyway. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.